Okay, so I want to go over the market versus the economy, the jobs reports, manufacturing, and housing. Okay, and I want to do this to sort of convey where we're at. I'm going to have a simple analogy. I'm here in Tokyo on a 2-week business trip. This is my first day, so I had a 14-hour trip here flying. Yesterday I had a little bit of time to think through all these things. And my wife and I just closed on this $1 million+ property where we're going to try and really build this out to increase our net worth to get over $5 million, which is where we're currently sitting as of before the purchase. We actually went through our asset stuff, and we're doing pretty well. We're in a pretty good spot, and we're actually trying to develop this piece of property. One, to build a house on it, and then two, we're going to have our other properties or other homes that we want to use for short-term rentals, possibly Vrbo, Airbnb, but also for some other advantage aspects. Now, where I want to go with the market versus the economy is that first, try to share this, like, subscribe, comment down below with any thoughts you guys have. We're just starting to roll with this, so it's going to start to get pretty fun with sharing my ideas. Now, with the market versus the economy, a lot of people currently are like, oh, the market's doing great. Look, the market's up, right? And I think it's important to think through this, that the market is not the economy. And I like to sort of think through the lens of like a football team, an American football team, or any type of sport team. The team would be representative of the economy, okay? Like the health of the economy. So if you have a lot of good players, or the average player is higher on that team, the team's gonna be really good. Now, if you have one player who's really, really good, the team might have a high winning percentage to a point, but from a sustainable aspect or from like the health, if that player goes down, you lose it. So I look at this scenario and I say, okay, if the team can represent the economy, we're going to be in the sense of it being healthy, right? Then we're going to have more average players that are solid, right? But if we don't have that representation, we might be in a bad spot from an economic perspective. But if we look at it where that team has one player who's really, really good, the market could be going up, but the economy is lagging. And that's sort of where manufacturing, the jobs, and housing comes into play. So thinking through that lens, I like to go back and I go, okay, as if you're going to be investing in the market, right, you might look at things like, okay, I want to look at the income statement of a company. I want to look at cash balance. I want to listen to the last 2 to 3 quarters of their reporting. I want to look at earnings per share, the EPS. I want to look at forward the PE ratio. I want to look at the 2-year forward PE. So you're using that to measure and to analyze a company, right? Or somebody who might be strong in the market. And in so doing, you might see that this company is increasing their income. They're driving up their revenue, so they are theoretically and also just a healthier business because of that. But at the same time, they might have laid off 20% of their employees because they figured out that ChatGPT can do a lot of their employees' work. They figured out that if they hire or buy some robot, the robot can ship 3 times what a normal person can ship, and they don't have to pay healthcare or something like that, right? So you're looking at these things, and you can see theoretically a company, and in practice, will lay off a certain amount of people, but if their revenue goes up, their market value goes up, but it's bad for the economy. So the market is not the economy, because you can have players that cut jobs, but the market goes up because their revenue is going up. So where this plays out is that if we look at things like I'll use myself as an example. Okay, so we got rid of 2 workers this past year. Now we only have 13 employees currently, but that's a pretty substantial percentage. Like 15% of our employees we got rid of this past year. Our revenue, our income increased. Okay, so our revenue increased. We spent less and our money went up, and these people don't have jobs. And so where this goes is that we can look at the jobs report right now, okay, and we're seeing that in August, these jobs, I think we were at like 27,000 jobs added, or we're at like an average of 27,000 jobs added. In July, the number was insane, but in June, that number was in the negative, like 13,000. In May, I want to say it was around like 15,000 jobs added. And the problem here is that you want to be adding about 80,000 jobs per month. Now, some right-wing Trumpinators will tell you that we should be adding, oh, well, we deported so many people, we only need to add about 10 to 40,000 jobs. But in reality, they're wrong, because we've only deported about 200,000 people. So we're still only looking at about 2 months of that taking hold. So we still need to be adding about 80,000 jobs. And the current situation that we're seeing is that we, at this moment in the United States, have more people without jobs than there are jobs available. Okay. And that's where the economy comes into play, is that we're seeing this drop off in the jobs available. And so long term, what's going to end up possibly happening is that when there's a downfall of jobs available, okay, that ends up having negative impact on the overall economy. Now, the market, these other companies might go up. These other companies might be viewed as successful. In the current situation right now, from what I've just read with the CEO reports, is that from August, is that 35% of CEOs are planning on cutting jobs in their company. Now, where this has a negative impact is that right now we're looking at currently housing is going down, okay, meaning there's not a lot of new homes being built. New homes are actually cheaper than old homes currently, which has never, ever happened. It might actually bode well for my wife and I, but this has never, ever happened. And the reason being is that a lot of people have mortgage rates that they got into that were lower, back in 21, 22, 23. The other aspect here is that a lot of people don't want to sell and then have to pay up at a higher interest rate when they get to that new home. So we're seeing that the job rate is pretty much collapsing. People aren't able to fulfill their jobs, or they're not getting jobs. We're seeing that the housing market, we're seeing that even the new housing, we're seeing that building permits are drastically lower. So the application for building permits is drastically lower. And where does this have a negative impact? Is that, okay, so that is multiple avenues. You have the DIY areas like Home Depots, Lowe's. Those businesses might not be doing as well. We're also seeing contractors and construction starting to drop off substantially. And those are all factors, because you have to think through all the materials and all the things along those lines that people have to be buying to actually build these homes. Building a home can have a huge impact on the economy, but when that's not happening, those specific areas will drop off. Now, the next aspect that we have to think through then is in the manufacturing realm. That, there was a ruling just recently that the tariffs are illegal based off of, and this is going to go to the Supreme Court, but the problem here is that manufacturing has been down quite a bit. And if these tariffs were put in place to increase manufacturing and now they're illegal, well, there's some inflation factors going on, and then there's also going to be some manufacturing issues. We don't have the infrastructure in place for people to actually get jobs. And then if they do put the infrastructure in place, a lot of the infrastructure is going to go towards robotics. And then those robotics companies are going to explode as far as their value is concerned, but people are still not going to have jobs. Okay, and then the last thing is we're looking at this, so we're seeing all these different factors, and we have to think through, if we're in this unhealthy situation from a market perspective, and we're seeing that companies are going to be laying people off, I think what tends to happen is that this isn't something that we should be super, super scared about currently, because there are going to be some interest rate cuts here coming up from the Fed FOMC meeting September 17th. I'm starting to think that we might even be looking at a half of an interest rate cut there. I think we're starting to see something might be a little bit more aggressive, because inflation is still rising. The unemployment is rising. And those are the two areas that the Fed's responsible for. And so there's a lot of different factors at play. Now, a lot of this stuff is happening right now. And when we're in a so-called recession, it might be 2, 3, 4 quarters, and we won't even know that we're in it until afterwards. And so what can we do about this, right? This goes back to all these doom and gloom analysis, but it still comes back to, sadly, and I think, a lot of the analysts out there will say that this is turning into a capital heavy asset funded market / atmosphere that we're in, right? So we're in a position where you've got to make sure that you have your financial I's dotted, your financial T's crossed. You've got to make sure that you've got that account for the initial month payments, right? And then we've got to make sure that we've got 6 months of an emergency fund saved up. And this is the point where I think you're going to start to see something like SCHD, which I've talked about in the past, is going to really start to rise. The value of SCHD, I think, will have a bit of an uptick over the next 2 to 3 months. I mentioned back in June that we were going to have some type of weird fall, okay? I think September, I think October, you're going to see some weird economic issues start to arise. We're going to start to see some stuff drop. I'm actually not even dollar cost averaging until the end of September. I am, though, with SCHD. And I do think actually once we see things start to pick up here after September 17th, we have to acknowledge that the crypto space is going to have a very quick response to the Fed financial impact right away. So we will see Bitcoin and Ethereum uptick the end of September. I think they're going to hold steady until September 17th. Then we might see a pretty big boom after that. But these are just sort of things I'm thinking through. And if you can align yourself and make sure that you're putting your money in the right spot, you're not wasting it on dumb shit, I hope this is going to help you really prep for the future so that you can be a little bit more calm and not make any brash decision. Until next time, peace. I'm out here in Tokyo. I'm going to try and get a video done every single day on my stay in Tokyo. Man, it's nice out here. It is humid though.